I'm Anna Urban, and this is the Wildly Different podcast. I'm going to talk about all the wildly different takes out there on ADHD, neurodivergence, spirituality, manifestation, the meaning of life, trauma, shame, joy, purpose, and of course, all the actionable, practical strategies from the super scientific to the super esoteric. Some episodes will leave you with more questions than answers, but that's exactly the point. Is ADHD a disorder or a gift? Are we here to hack our time or maybe even to reimagine what productivity looks like entirely? How do we get ourselves to do the things we say we're going to do, even when every cell in our body would rather do something else? Are we neurodivergent, or are we aliens from Atlantis sent here to evolve humanity? Are supplements a scam? What's the deal with ADHD meds, and why do we have so much drama about it? If any of these questions resonate with you, then you've come to the right place. Let's get untamed. Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to the Wildly Different podcast with Anna Urban. Today, I want to talk about resilience. What is resilience? How do you build resilience with ADHD? How do you stop outsourcing your power to your problems or to circumstances that happen, to things outside of your control, to other people? Because it all goes along with each other. Like, it all plays with each other. And I want to give you just like a little bit of what's on my mind. So today I got a text from my daughter's teacher that she wasn't feeling well. And so, of course, I went to go pick her up early from school. She puked a couple times. I made soup. I was trying to make her comfortable. I also had I brought my son home early as well. Even though he wasn't sick, he wanted to come home. So I brought him home too. And it wasn't the day that I had planned, right? I had a whole day of catching up on work and recording this podcast and sending out some emails and writing some posts. And right, so I had a whole work day planned. And what's interesting about that is I think that some people would have something like this happen and say, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm so overwhelmed. This is awful. This is terrible, blah, 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 blah. And then they might even judge themselves or shame themselves for having these thoughts, right? Because it's like, I'm a mom, like I'm supposed to be there for her. And so I've kind of like the thoughts, this isn't my kid's first time getting sick. So I have experienced each and every thought under the sun when it comes to stopping what you were originally planning on doing and doing something else, right? Like pivoting from your original plan and then doing something else. But there's another thought that sounds productive, but is actually like mindset bypass. Like you're bypassing the work of building resilience. But so then there's another thought that is a sneaky, honestly, like a mindset bypass thought where we think we are being productive. We tell ourselves that we're doing the right thing, but we're actually just avoiding deeper work. We're avoiding building resilience. So that thought is something like, oh, of course, I'm going to drop everything to, go and take care of my daughter. Work can wait. Or, I'll get to it tomorrow. Or, this is more important. And it's not that, of course your kids are more important. But there's always something. Like something is always going to derail your plans. So one day it's your kid getting sick. Another day it could be, an unexpected call or an unexpected visitor, an email that kind of like set you off. Or if you don't work for yourself, it could be, an unexpected request. Or maybe you're feeling sick or you're not in the mood or whatever it is. And the point is, if we have this underlying belief that something will always come up that is more important than, your business or your job or whatever, that is exactly the belief that we're going to be solidifying with the actions that we take. So the point of this is there is duality. Of course, my family comes first, always, forever and ever, amen. I will drop everything for my family. But right now, like, she's good. She's resting. She's watching Bluey. She's taken care of. And now would be the time where I would, you know, I would take a step back. I would, maybe be sitting on the couch too, or I would be scrolling on my phone, or I would be just like dilly-dallying, to be honest. Like, there are so many things where our plans get derailed and we think we have to scrap everything. We think we have to, scrap our business, scrap our clients, scrap the work that we're doing, when it doesn't have to be so black and white. And I know that black and white thinking is a tricky part of having ADHD, right? It's something that we have to learn to navigate. And the way that we learn to navigate that is by building resilience. And that is what I want to get at today. So, of course, you're going to take care of what needs to be taken care of. Like, if your kid's sick, go take care of your kid. If you are sick, go take care of yourself. But are you shutting off as a way of avoiding the mindset work that we need to do when things come up, right? So if you're overwhelmed by ADHD challenges, if you are feeling paralyzed by things always coming up, you are likely outsourcing your power to those things. And so, there's a lot of conversation around victim mentality, right? Like, showing up as a victim. Like, if subconsciously you think like, oh, well, something always comes up, like something always comes up to derail my plans, that is an example of victim mentality, right? Because that's not a fact. Like, even when something comes up, you still have agency. And so the majority of my clients, like my members that come to me in ADHD Untamed, they get that. Like, they understand the difference between victim mentality and empowered mentality. They understand the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. They get it. The problem is catching yourself in victim mentality is step one, and a lot of people have that self-awareness. Step two, though, is building a tolerance, building resilience to get out of it. So how do you do that? Like, how do you build resilience to get out of victim mentality? How do you build resilience to get out of the belief of things always come up, I'll never learn, this is just who I am, right? Like, there's lots and lots of subconscious beliefs that we hold, and then the actions that we take, sometimes we are intentionally procrastinating, numbing, avoiding, but other times we are unknowingly lying to ourselves and sabotaging ourselves, right? So again, and I want to make the point here that there is a duality. Of course, if something comes up and it's an emergency, take care of that emergency. But the other part of it is it always an emergency? Is it always really an emergency? Right? This is where we build the resilience, is understanding when something isn't really an emergency. And when our plans get derailed, that we can come back to them. And in the process, we are building resilience. So let's talk more about that. Resilience isn't just about pushing through. It's about pushing with purpose. Resilience is not about pushing through. It's about pushing with purpose. It's about getting back up, learning, adapting, right? With ADHD, resilience means learning to trust yourself even when things go sideways. And when you have ADHD, this process needs to happen externally. Like, you cannot keep it on your head. The parts of our brains that are responsible for self-awareness, they're lagging. We have other strengths, right? So this is an area where we really need to be diligent about paying attention to what we're thinking. It's truly a non-negotiable. Listen, this is not me selling myself. Go work with whatever coach you feel comfortable with. Go work, get resourced in whatever way feels appropriate, but coaching is pretty much a non-negotiable for ADHD. Journaling is 100% a non-negotiable with ADHD, because if we are not developing awareness of our thoughts, we're just going to be at the mercy of our subconscious beliefs and our reactivity from now until forever. So we need to develop that self-awareness. We need to externalize, we need to outsource that self-awareness as much as possible. So let's talk about, how do you move beyond just the self-awareness? Because so many of us are so self-aware, like we're painfully self-aware. We know exactly why we're doing what we're doing. The tricky part is, how do you move out of self-awareness and into action? Like, how do you take that self-awareness to drive what you want to do? And so in order for us to do that, let's talk about the misconceptions of how to build resilience, the misconceptions behind what taking action looks like. So misconception number one, I have 5 misconceptions. Misconception number one is that resilience is just pushing through, right? It's pushing through on exhaustion. It's pushing through burnout. It's pushing through overwhelm. That's just self-abandonment. That's not resilience. That's just self-abandonment with a different name. Resilience is knowing when to rest, when to take care of what's important, when to set boundaries, when to pivot. Okay, misconception number 2 is that resilience means being tough, being emotionless. Listen, I am as soft as they come. You better believe I started tearing up when I got that text from my daughter's teacher saying, like, she's not feeling well, she's laying down on the couch, can you come pick her up? Of course, I'll be right there, right? Like, it's not about having toughness. It's not about, being emotionless. It's certainly not about suppressing your emotions. It's actually the opposite. The more you can build a tolerance for your emotions, the more resilient you will become. The more you allow yourself to feel, to process, to respond thoughtfully, the more resilient you will become. So emotional awareness and flexibility are key to resilience, especially with ADHD. So ask yourself, do I know what I'm feeling and why? Am I allowing this emotion to exist in my body? Misconception number 3 is that resilience means solving problems. And there's a duality there, okay? Resilience is not about having the right answers or solving the right problems or fixing things immediately. It is about taking imperfect action. It's about learning from the experience. It's about trusting yourself to adapt. And here's why. Resilience is not just about solving problem after problem after problem after problem, because there will always be more problems. There will always be more problems. So if you are solving the exact same problem day after day after day, month after month, year after year, you're not building resilience. You're just getting exhausted solving problems. And it's no wonder why you give up, right? Like, if, let's say, the problem is you want to exercise more, but you're just not motivated. If every day you have to try to, like, trick yourself into exercising, you're not building resilience, and that's not gonna last very long. And I wanna talk about what the antidote to that is in a bit. But the 5th misconception, number 4. I'm on number 4. Can't count. The 4th misconception is that resilience happens automatically. Like, it just happens, without us really thinking about it. And that's obviously not true. Resilience is a practice. And there are some days where we're going to feel more resilient, like we're going to feel like we can take on the world. And then there are other days where we feel like a shell, like we could literally crack at any moment. Does that mean you are less resilient? No. Like, resilience is not this destination. It is a practice. It's more of a journey, and it fluctuates. It fluctuates with the seasons. It fluctuates with your moods. It fluctuates with, your season of life, maybe how old your kids are, whatever. Resilience is built through that persistence. It's built through showing up even when it feels difficult to show up, even when it feels like you're starting over, because I promise you, you are not. You're not starting over. That's the whole point. It's easy to build resilience on the good days, but that is not, I mean, we can build some resilience on those days, of course, but resilience really is built on the days when it's difficult to show up. The fifth misconception, and this is one that is really overlooked, is that resilience is a solo effort, or that some people are just born more resilient than others, or that like it's just inherent. Resilience is 100% a community effort. You need to find your tribe. This is also why I built a community rather than just continuing with one-on-one coaching, is because true resilience involves community. It involves accountability more than you can get from just one person. It involves knowing when to ask for help. It involves getting different perspectives. Resilience is a solo effort. And also, one person can only be a mirror for you in certain areas. Like, I may look to this person for examples of resilience in parenting. I may look to someone completely different for examples of resilience in business. I may look to someone else for examples of resilience in fitness, right? So it's more than one person is not going to check off every single box for you, which is why it's so important to be surrounded by multiple people, multiple examples of resilience. Because anytime you are pedestaling somebody, you are setting yourself up for disappointment, because they could do or say one wrong thing or one thing that doesn't align with you, and there goes your resilience that you just pinned on this one person. Resilience is more than just reliant on you, it's reliant on multiple perspectives, multiple mirrors. So, before we transition into how to build resilience, I want to just ground you and what we've already learned here, which is that there is a duality to resilience. Resilience is not just about pushing through, it's about the process, the practice of like catching yourself from different angles, right? When we want to learn how to move beyond just self-awareness and into taking action, we need to be willing to see how we lie to ourselves and be willing to take action to reprogram those lies. So let's talk about how to do that, shall we? How do we build resilience? How do we build resilience instead of outsourcing our power to our problem? So first of all, it's really, really crucial that you know what you want. Like what you ultimately want, not what society tells you want, not what your family of origin tells you that you want, not even what you think you want, but maybe just treat it as an experiment in figuring yourself out. And this might mean that you look to other people as inspiration. Like, that's totally fine. See what lands for you. But how do we know what we're building resilience for if we don't know what we want? Right? Like, the way that I am building resilience is I am building resilience as a woman who wants to raise a family and be fully present. I want to homeschool, right? I want to homeschool. Right now, my kids are in a like an alternative kind of school, which is fine for now. They're only 4 and 5, so we got time like for academic stuff. But eventually, I want to homeschool, and I also want to run a successful business. And so for me, it makes sense that I'm building resilience in multiple areas. Like, I'm building resilience in my parenting. I'm building resilience in my marriage, because that's a very important part of what is going to make all of this possible. I am building resilience as an entrepreneur. And so for you, it's getting clear on what do you want to build resilience for? Like, what is the point of doing this? Like, what is the point of the effort? Because if you don't know why you're doing something, you're not going to want to do it. ADHD at its core is having an interest-based nervous system. It's going to be really, really hard to regulate our bodies and to motivate ourselves when we're not interested in what we're doing, right? Or when we're confused about what we're doing. So it starts there. It starts with knowing what you want. And it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want, but don't let that be a reason why you don't build resilience. Like maybe for now, building resilience means like building resilience towards discovering what you want. And so what would that look like? I'm sure that it doesn't just look like scrolling aimlessly or, avoiding like certain tasks. Like it's you're going to need to build resilience towards figuring out what you want to do. But let's say you do know what you want to do, right? Let's say you do know exactly what vision you have for yourself, the vision that you have for your life. Resilience is more than just solving problems, it's about mastering skills. So that is my first recommendation for you in how to build resilience. It's focusing on, okay, identify what your problems are. All right? Maybe your problem is time blindness. Like you have a tough time, you lose track of time. If every single day you show up to your desk, you show up to your day trying to solve this problem, like trying to meet this problem every single day, you're going to be exhausted, right? You're going to be racing the clock always. But what is actually beneath this? Like, what is the actual skill? So knowing what time it is a problem, but what is the actual skill that you can build that would make that problem obsolete? Like, what are the supports that you can put in place that would allow you to build that skill? So, for example, if you consistently go over on time, maybe the skill that you need to practice is being more concise. Maybe the skill that you need to practice is prioritizing. Maybe the skill needs to be walking away from something before it's finished. Or maybe this is something that you can do with timers, right? Like for example, if you're writing a post, let's say you use social media for your business and you're writing a post and you have an hour to work. Like you want to get this post done in an hour, but you consistently go well over that time limit that you've set for yourself. It takes you 2 hours or 3 hours to write a post. It's more than just keeping track of time. It's more than just, having time blindness. It's about practicing the skill of writing posts faster. So that would mean okay, can you get better at messaging? Can you get better at copy? Like, can you develop a system to make it faster for you to execute this task in a timely process, right? Like, instead of asking how can I get all of my work done on time, it's how can I develop the skill of prioritizing tasks and managing my time effectively. And this could mean that you bring in other support, that you bring in a business coach, that you join a accountability group, that you join Untamed, that you learn productivity tools, that you equip your environment with tools that would allow you to tell time, right? You get a watch, you get timers, you get digital clocks. Like you make time so in your face that you can't ignore it. But this approach focuses on your growth. It focuses on a skill that you can use again and again and again, rather than having to solve this problem of time blindness day after day after day. So, for example, I worked with a client who was a healthcare provider, and she came to me and was like, I'm very time blind. I always go over on my on the time that I've set aside for my patients, and that means that I fall really behind on the write-ups that I'm supposed to do in between. And so there was a point where she was 100 patient write-ups behind. And so, and that was, of course, it was a problem of time blindness. It was also a problem of, communicating boundaries. But the point is, she didn't want to rush her patients. So building resilience for her meant practicing self-compassion. When she was able to wrap up a patient meeting efficiently, it's congratulating herself for that. Wow, look at what I did today. What worked? What didn't work, right? It's getting curious. How can I structure my appointments to end 5 minutes earlier? She's building the skill of awareness, of time awareness, right? Eventually, she got caught up on those 100 patient write-ups. And that, again, is another opportunity to say, look how far I've come. Look how far I've come. What did I learn from this experience? What allowed me to get caught up? How can I apply this to another scenario, right, where I may fall behind? It also came with seeking out and implementing practical changes, like adding a big ass clock in her office to manage her time. Another approach to building resilience is paying attention to when we are blaming external circumstances versus owning our capacity. So outsourcing your power would be something like a thought like, I can't get things done because something always comes up, right? My kids are chaotic. My boss is too demanding. My schedule is too unpredictable. This makes you a passenger to your circumstances. Building resilience would mean looking at your current scenario and saying, given my current reality, what can I realistically commit to? If you are someone who, let's say you have, a baby and their naps are inconsistent, yes, they're inconsistent, but that about your baby. That he's struggling to figure out his naps. How can you treat that as something that you can expect? So building resilience would mean building resilience for unpredictability. How can you treat that as a skill rather than solving a problem every single day? Oh, my son didn't nap today. I guess I'm not doing work, or I'm not doing laundry. But no, that your schedule is unpredictable. So how can you work with that? How can you use it as an opportunity to build resilience? Same thing goes with tantrums, or when a kid isn't listening, right? That's what kids do. That is what kids do. How can we treat that as the rule rather than the exception, right? We often hear moms saying something like, well, if my kids would just listen, then, I wouldn't have to yell. I don't want to yell, but they don't listen, right? So we're using the external circumstances to determine what we do, to determine our actions, to determine our capacity. But what if instead we look at this as an opportunity to build resilience? Okay, my kids aren't listening to me. Why? Right? What is going on here? Is this an opportunity for me to build some patience? Right? Is this an opportunity for me to build some tolerance for frustration? When do our kids not listen? Right? When we're heading out the door. Why? Why don't they listen? Oh, well, they want to finish playing their game, or they don't want to put their shoes on or whatever. Okay, so now we have some data. We have some data to work with. So it's more than just like, well, they made me do it. But it's, how can we use this as an opportunity to build some awareness and to be in the driver's seat rather than at the mercy of whatever our kids are doing or not doing, right? So when you are focused on building a resilience for your kids not listening, then now we're solution focused, we're solution oriented, right? This can help you respond calmly even during meltdowns, because you're just gathering data, baby. This doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean that you're a bad mom, that your kids aren't listening, right? Sometimes we get frustrated because it's hitting a nerve. It's hitting on this shadow that we have. Like, oh, if they're not listening, it means that I'm a bad mom. Or if they're not listening, that means that they are spoiled, right? What if we drop the drama? What if we drop the story and we get curious, right? What if we get curious instead of creating this story of like who we are and who our kids are and yada yada yada. Okay, so the last strategy that I have for you for building resilience is taking aligned action instead of waiting for motivation. Listen, waiting for the winds of motivation is like waiting for a shooting star. It is a rare day when we are feeling motivated, when we are roaring to go. Like how rare is that? Like you can pretty much count, if you're focusing on building resilience, you can pretty much count on the consistency of you not being motivated. Like stop treating motivation as something that is a regular occurrence in your life, and you will start building resilience towards not feeling motivated, right? So this looks like when we outsource our power to something like motivation, we'll say, I'll start when I feel motivated. I'll start when I feel inspired. I'll start when I'm less confused, right? This hands over your power to the unpredictable winds of motivation, and they ain't coming for you. And when they do, they are short-lived and we don't know when they'll be back, right? So building resilience is taking one small action that aligns with your goals, even when you're tired, even when you're overwhelmed, even when you're confused, right? Let's say that you are job hunting. Let's say that you are searching for a job and you are waiting to feel motivated. Okay, what are you waiting for? Maybe you're trying to answer too many questions at once. Like, oh, I have to apply to this many jobs, and I have to research these many companies, and I have to practice interviewing. And it's like you're trying to solve for 8 different problems at once. When what is an action, one action that you can take today? Maybe you apply to one job without the perfect resume, or maybe you give yourself a time limit for how long you're going to spend tweaking your resume, and then whatever's done is done, right? But we need to work on building resilience without the motivation, without all of the answers, right? So action is what drives confidence. Action is what drives data. Action drives more action. So to wrap all of this up, I want you to notice when you are outsourcing your power instead of building resilience, when you are avoiding a task, when you are seeking reassurance, when you are over-researching. I want you to notice when you are getting further and further away from the things that you say you want. And then I want you to ask yourself, what do I actually want? And practice figuring that out. Like, what skill or mindset do I need to practice in order to figure out what I want? And then I want you to take small, tiny actions, because it is only from those actions that we can prove to ourselves that we're resilient. Like, it is only from the action that we can gather the data to know what our next step is to build more resilience. Because if you were just solving the same problems over and over and over and over again, you're not building resilience. You're just getting exhausted, right? And then finally, I want you to practice self-compassion. I want you to practice curiosity. When things go wrong, I want you to ask, what can I learn from this? When you do something that you are proud of, I want you to acknowledge, look how far I've come. Look at this uncomfortable thing that I did towards the thing that I said that I wanted. All right, my friends, that's all I have for you today. This has been a wild episode, and I'll be honest, this episode for me was me building resilience. So what I want to leave you with today is, what is one action that you could take in order to build resilience today? What is one action that you could take towards building resilience towards the thing that you want most out of life, towards the person that you know that you can be. I am doing it right now. I truly don't know if this podcast episode made any sense, but I am building resilience by doing it, by showing up here and choosing to take action towards a goal that is meaningful for me. I made chicken soup today when I really didn't feel like it. I recorded a podcast episode today when I really didn't feel like it. Like, that is the process of moving beyond self awareness and into empowerment, into living the life that you see yourself living. Because you're going to be uncomfortable either way. You're going to be uncomfortable either way. When you aren't resilient, you know that you're not. You know that you're not. Like, you're aware of the ways in which you're acutely aware of the ways in which your life isn't aligned with the person that you want to be, the person that you know you can be. And so if you're going to be uncomfortable, you may as well be uncomfortable doing the thing that's going to move you forward, doing the thing that's going to build resilience rather than keeping you stuck. All right, my friends, it's been real. Stay wild.